once said, the will to win, the desire to succeed,
What takes guts is to put yourself on the line.
the urge to reach your full potential.
A leader makes the way.
These are the keys that will unlock the door to personal excellence. Success Resources is the world's leading events promoter of business, personal development, and wealth creation programs. For over 30 years, we've helped over 10 million people across 30 countries unlock their full potential. From North America to Europe to Africa to Asia to Oceania, we are the key to your personal success. We open the door to the world's best speakers, such as Anthony Robbins, Sir Richard Branson, Robert Kiyosaki, and T. Harv Eker, to name a few. We have over 500 events a year and access to the greatest thinkers, achievers, and motivators of our time. We guide you to the success that lies in every one of us.
But you will not discover your greatness in your comfort zone.
We have never really truly reached our destination. There's always another level to strive for. Your best is yet to come. Success Resources, your learning partners.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Tony Fonderson with Success Resources, welcoming you to a wonderful day today. Hi, hello everybody. Really, really great to see you here and to have you here. I see lots of people from all over the world. Where is everybody from today? I see we have from India. Hello, Gracia. Hi, Rita. Hi Shaya. Wow, excellent. We have people from India, from London, from all over the world. This is a wonderful day today. We're going to have a great time. Please make sure that you've got something to write with. We've got a lot of work to cover today, and I want you to get as much value as possible. I know that today's a Sunday, it's a day of your weekend, and you're taking valuable time out from all over the world. Some of you are still asleep, some of you are early in the morning. I see Norway, I see Chicago, I see South Africa, I see Lagos, Nigeria. Wow, we're a really, really international crowd. I'm so thankful and so honored to have this opportunity to spend this time with you today. I would like to extend a big, big, big thank you to Success Resources, Ms. June Yoon, Mr. Alex Mondosian, Ms. Sandra Bravo, and our very, very gracious hosts, Mr. and Mrs. Richard and Veronica Tan. So, today, we are going to go into some really juicy stuff about relationships. And we have, it's going to be called The Relationship. Let me see. And we're going to start our presentation. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the Relationship Repair Accelerator, which is 5 areas that happy couples navigate successfully to keep their relationships juicy, connected, and meaningful. Are you ready? If you're ready, type yes in the chat. Wonderful. Wonderful. Excellent. Please let me know if you can hear me. If everybody can hear me, everybody can see, everybody ready? Great, 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 great. That's absolutely fantastic. Great. So, please turn off all of your cell phones, anything that beeps, anything that notifies you. If you've got Skype running, please minimize it and silence it. If you've got Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or anything that will distract you, because we're going to be spending a couple of hours today, and we really want to make sure that you get the maximum value of our time that we spend together. So, let's move on. One thing I would advise you, grab a drink, make sure that you have some water next to you. And if you have a pen and a notebook, that would be really, really great. Grab some notes and we are going to start. So, could we have the poll up today? I would like to find out a little bit more about you. Yeah. How many of you are you a woman or are you a man? Could you please answer the poll? Just let me know, just get some insight on who's here with me tonight. Oh, wow. We're having, the numbers are changing. Whilst the numbers are changing, I'll just grab a drink of water. So it looks as if the women outnumber the men by almost threefold. It seems as if we're 78% men and 20% are women. Wow, thank you. Thank you. So it's a bit skewed today, but never mind. It's always wonderful to find people who are very interested in making life better, making the world better. And relationships is one of the most important things in our lives. As a matter of fact, the single most important thing in your life is the quality of your relationships. You know, relationships are so important because we human beings, we are not born alone. We spend 9 months in our mother's wombs, listening to our mother's heartbeat internally. And then we are born into a big wide world. And the first thing that we do is we open our mouths and we cry. And that cry is an expression that we want to be reconnected to our mothers, our families, the people who love us and our caregivers. So it's an actual biological necessity. Human beings cannot survive on their own, and human beings cannot survive alone. We are wired to connect, we are wired to attach, we are wired to bond, and we are wired to love one another. And so I'd like to take a little bit of time to actually find out, where we are in terms of our love lives, because today we live in a world where everything is moving so fast. Everything is changing very rapidly. It seems as if every time we wake up every morning and we switch on the news, there's news of some other developments. And the world is moving at such a pace that it's hard for many people to keep up. And if you can keep up, that's okay, but many people can't. We now are living in the world of COVID-19. And unfortunately, the initial optimism and the initial hope that we had at the beginning of the year was that we would be able to ride the wave and have some kind of global immunity and then resume our lives. However, it seems as if that is not in sight yet. So millions and millions and millions of us are confined at home. We've had to radically alter our social lives. We've had to, those of us who have children, the children have to stay at home. We have to maintain physical distance from one another. We can't go to work. We can't do our daily lives. And, relationships were already hard enough as it was before the COVID-19 crisis. But now we're all locked in at home, and many of us cannot carry out our normal day-to-day activities in the way that we're used to, and that includes relating to one another. Many people are isolated away from their homes, people are isolated away from their families, people are stranded. Unfortunately, the people who unfortunately are ill sometimes have to be in hospital all alone. So I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge you and to say that if you're going through a crisis, if you're going through any health challenges, if a loved one is ill, or if you've lost a loved one, I just want to say that, I really, really feel for you. I really empathize and I sympathize, and I send you my energy and my love and my support. And I hope that the time that we're going to spend here today together will provide some comfort for you in your daily activities and provide you with some form of encouragement. We have a lot of stressors, social distancing. Now we have to wear masks and we can't even see each other. And a big part of us relating and communicating is through our bodies, through our non-verbal interactions with one another. And having a mask covering the lower part of your face really hides different facial expressions. And so one of the biggest and most powerful ways that you can communicate is with your look, with a smile. And unfortunately, when you're behind a mask, you cannot smile. The only thing that people can discern are your eyes, and sometimes that's a little bit difficult to actually discern. Also, I want to mention that because of the coronavirus crisis, a lot of us are now facing very precarious financial conditions because a lot of us aren't working, or our jobs are under threat, or we're facing a lot of uncertainty in the months and the weeks ahead. And so that in and of itself is another source of stress, which could actually negatively impact your relationship. So we've got environmental stress, we've got social stress, we've got financial stresses. And when we're alone, we turn to each other for comfort. And what we have to do is to reach out to one another and actually connect with one another. And that's one of the reasons why I really want to emphasize that your relationships are really important. And even though now we're facing a period of time whereby we're confined and we're locked in, this is the time not to go back in on ourselves. This is the time when we should try maybe and revisit some of the things that we took for granted. Maybe we have some relationships which, some people who mean so much to us, but just because we didn't need to be in contact with them before the crisis, but now we find out that, we are isolated and disconnected from them for the long haul. Maybe now is the time for us to renew those bonds. Maybe this is the time to pick up the phone, or maybe this is the time to send an SMS or to write a letter. Maybe this is the time to mend fences, to repair old wounds which maybe have been festering for so long. And for others, maybe this is a time for us to say that, maybe this is the time for us to actually reach out and create new bonds, new connections, new friendships, and hopefully new lovers. And the time that we're going to spend here together is geared at supporting you in that. Yeah. So we really need to come together because we can't survive alone, and we have to collaborate. And us collaborating starts with better relationships. Yeah. Now, relationships are very important because it's been scientifically proven that relationships have massive health benefits. People who are in healthy relationships, they live longer, they have less stress, they actually contribute more positively to society, and healthy people, have a healthy effect on the people surrounding them. And relationships also are like magnifiers. They take what's in you and they make it bigger, brighter, and much more intense. So if you have a good feeling when you're in a relationship, those good feelings actually multiply. And love, it's like a candlelight. When you have a candlelight and you can use one candlelight to light another candle, and to light another candle, and to light another candle. Well, love is like that. The more love you give, the more love you experience, and the more love you feel. You don't lose love by expressing love. In fact, what you do is that you gain love, you amplify. So love brings joy into your life. Love brings compassion. Love makes the world a better place. And I'm sure that all of us want to have as best an experience on this earth as possible in our time that is here. And that includes, giving love and also receiving love and experiencing love. So I'd just like to encourage you, I'd just like to remind you and to be a champion for you that you owe it to yourself. The mere fact that you are alive and on this planet here today means that you are worthy of love. I don't care what kind of experience you've had in the past. you may have had a very, very challenging time. Things may not have turned out the way that you wanted them to turn out. But I want you to know that the past is the past. All we have is now. And we can take this moment in now and we can actually plan for a better future. We can look back on our mistakes and learn from them, but we cannot change the past. We have to live for now, for today. Live fully for today and be optimistic. Just because something happened to you in the past that may not have worked out doesn't mean that things are not going to work out for you in the future. All you need is a little bit of help, a little bit of optimism, a little bit of self-confidence, and you need to bring the best of yourself, because you are a blessing to others and you are full of love, and others deserve to have the benefits, to have the privilege to be in your presence and to enjoy the contributions that you make on this earth, because you are unique. So give love, receive love, and be love. That is my invocation to you. So could we have the next poll, please? So would you mind answering the poll? I just want to take a quick temperature check just to find out what everybody's relationship status is. Are you single? Are you married? Are you taken? Do you know if you're taken or not? Do you have your eyes on somebody? Are you in pursuit or are you being pursued? Just to give an idea of where people are. Yeah. Yeah, wow. So I can see from the poll that we have a pretty even split. We have about 45%, the majority of respondents, of attendees here, are single. And we have 25% who are married, 15% who are taken. We've got 3% who are confused. 5% wondering if they're taken or not. That's pretty interesting. And we have 8% who got somebody in mind, and basically they're mounting their campaign. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being a good sport and for playing. Because, many of us have many, many challenges, and I just want to acknowledge that, because finding somebody who resonates with you, finding somebody who uplifts you, finding somebody who actually fits into your life, and finding somebody with whom you can have a harmonious relationship with whom you can actually be yourself with whom you can actually feel secure and safe with, isn't as straightforward as it sounds. And many people, including myself, have had a lot of challenges in this area. It's so strange that, we grow up and we have a lot of high hopes about meeting our person, meeting our other half, and creating a better life together. And it seems so simple when we're young, but reality sometimes isn't as easy for all of us. Marriages are shorter and shorter. Many people have had long-term relationships which didn't work out, and many people have actually experienced a lot of pain from these experiences, and they go into a relationship looking for love, but what they experience is something else. And it's not because it's their fault. So if you've had a negative experience, or if you've had an experience that didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to turn out. Maybe you've been single for so long and you've been trying to actually, reach out and make a connection, but you can't make a connection. Maybe you're looking for eligible people who are of like mind and who have the same kinds of values as you are, and you haven't been able to find somebody. Or maybe you found somebody and, all of the hopes and all of the love and all the attention that you give wasn't reciprocated, wasn't given back to you. Or maybe instead of you finding joy and tenderness, you found heartache, you found harshness, you found anger. Maybe you've been used, maybe you've been misled, Or maybe every time that you think that things are going well, something happens just to come and, smash your dreams, and, you feel as if all the efforts that you put in into trying to show your love are misunderstood, and instead you get punished for trying to be a good person. And this can be really, really demoralizing. Or maybe you're married and maybe things just aren't the way that they used to be. Maybe this person who used to be your best friend has now turned into a stranger with whom you live under the same roof and you live kind of parallel lives. Or maybe the only thing that connects you are your children. Maybe now you look at one another and you are scared to actually open up your mouth because you're walking on eggshells, because you feel like if you do anything, it may be taken the wrong way, and you're just so tired of being made to feel wrong all the time. Or maybe you're a person who needs love, who needs reassurance, who wants to know that their partner is actually connected to them, and you need to know that on a regular basis. And the more you try to go closer to your partner, the more that you approach them, the more that they push you away, and the more that they withdraw from you. And everything that you try to do to make their life simpler is not seen. And yet, each time you make a small mistake, then immediately they notice it and they pass a remark, or they make an unfair comparison, or they don't take your particular special circumstances into account when they are making an assessment about you. And I don't know about you, but I know that being judged and being judged unfairly is a really, really, really painful thing. It cuts down your confidence. It makes you unsure of yourself. It makes you feel alone. It makes you feel isolated. And you can't bring out the best person that you actually are. So I really, really want to acknowledge you and say that if any of these things that I have mentioned, if you can relate to any of this, I just want to tell you that you're in the right place, because today we are going to spend some time to see what we can do about it, to look at the different areas where are typical of, which cause problems in people's relationships and which trip people up. And a lot of people have good intentions, but unfortunately they have negative outcomes. And they are all clustered in these areas that we're going to look at today. So if any of these challenges that I've just named, if any of them relate to you, then I want to say, you're in the right place. You made a good decision, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that the time that we spend together will be useful for you, that you can take some actionable content, and that you can actually do something positive with this information, even if it is just to make a decision. So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at 5 key areas that you need to focus on to turn your relationships around, even if you face one of the following problems. Even if you're single and you haven't been able to find your special person yet. Even if you have a history of poor relationships and you have chances, but none of those chances ever seem to stick, and none of those chances ever seem to be the right ones. Or maybe you are coupled, maybe you are taken, or you're married, or you are in a long-term relationship, but that relationship doesn't bring you the kind of connection, doesn't bring you the kind of joy, doesn't bring you the kind of positive energy that you had in the past. Maybe you don't feel seen, maybe your partner doesn't communicate with you in the way that you used to communicate before. Maybe you communicate with them and they don't pay attention to you anymore. Or maybe everything that you say is taken out of context and turned against you and twisted in a way that, should be twisted. And all of these things, maybe you've just given up hope. Maybe you're in a relationship and you're stuck and you just think that, well, the pain of you trying to leave this relationship is going to be much greater than the pain of you staying in the relationship. So you're stuck, you're trapped, you're paralyzed, you can't move, even though you're unhappy. Or maybe you don't have a relationship and you're yearning for one, you're crying for one, you're aching for one, and your heart is so full of love that you want to share, and there's nobody there. nobody appropriate to share that with you. So today we're going to see what we can do about this situation and how we can make the future much better than what it is right now and how it's been in the past. So before I do that, I'd just like to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Tony Fonderson. I'm a relationship coach and a mentor. I love to be called a relationship guide. I have an engineering background, and my life mission is to make relationship skills a cornerstone of everyone's education. And I have a popular relationship advice fan page on Facebook, which I share relationship tips and tricks, and it's been seen millions and millions of times, all of the information that I share. I'm a family man. I used to be married. I'm not married anymore. I do have a partner. I'm a son. I'm a father of 2 beautiful adults. I'm a really good friend. I have a quite large social circle. I come from a family of 6 boys, so we don't have any sisters, but I've got lots of cousins who are like sisters to me, and I've got lots of sisters from another mother, and countless nieces and nephews, and I'm the author of an upcoming book called From Struggling to Cuddling. Now, you may be wondering, how on earth, what have you got to do with relationships, and how did you actually get into this? Well, that's a bit of a long story. I've always been very, very intuitive and very, very sensitive, and I traveled a lot. My parents lived in many different countries when I was a child, so we usually moved from country to country, and that meant that we had to leave different schools and go into integrating new schools. So I was used to losing my friends and having to make friends in very, very short spaces of time, very, very often, very, very regularly. And that made me hyper attuned to social cues. And by nature, I'm very, very sensitive. People usually tell me their secrets. It's one of the things that people spontaneously do. And ever since I was a child, people have confided in me, and usually they confide in me about what really, really touches them in their hearts. And usually what touches them in their hearts is usually the love that they have for someone or the pain that they've experienced for love. So I was always interested in relationships. And I grew up, I studied engineering, I studied microelectronics, and we had to make computer chips behave like human brains. And so I also started studying psychology in university. And I found out that I loved studying human beings and human behavior much, much more than I loved studying electronics. So it's always been a pet love of mine. I got married when I was quite young, had 2 children, married the love of my life, my high school sweetheart, and we had a relationship that took us through the whole spectrum of emotions, and we had a lot of challenges, and unfortunately our relationship ended. And I will never forget the day when we had to sit down and announce to our 2 children that Mummy and Daddy would be divorcing and wouldn't stay together anymore. The shock, the heartbreak, the trauma is something that I will never forget. I remember one night I woke up because I heard some noise, and I came out of my room. It was around 2 a.m. and I heard my child sobbing, speaking aloud. Why can't Mommy and Daddy stay together? How comes, why does this happen to me? How comes, this happens to me? And I just felt so paralyzed. I was heartbroken. Here was my child. I was her father. I couldn't comfort her. And I realized that a lot of the challenges that I had in my marriage came down to ignorance. Me thinking that I knew myself, me thinking that I knew my spouse, me thinking that I knew what it took to make a relationship succeed. But in actual fact, I didn't. I really didn't know. And I swore to myself that the pain that I went through, my children would not go through. And I sent myself on a quest, which started in 1998, so that's 22 years. And I studied lots of all the leading lights and luminaries and gurus about what does it take to have a happy, healthy relationship that is good, not just for one person in the relationship, that is good for both partners in the relationship at the same time. How do they find it? how do they succeed? What do they do that unsuccessful people don't do? And what don't they do that unsuccessful people do? What were the secrets? And that quest took me all over the world, and it helped me to realize some key things. And I boiled down and distilled some of the key lessons that help people to succeed in relationships. And after doing that, people started consulting me, and I've had lots and lots of hundreds of people who've taken my relationship advice, who come to me for help, and I've helped them successfully with what I'm about to share with you today. And these are just a few of my testimonials, but I won't spend too much time on that. I want to actually give you some meat, some content. So, what is love? If you ask 10 people what love is, I'm sure that they'll give you 10 different explanations. And I'd like to share with you some components out of which I think many people would recognize, no matter how they define love. And love has 3 components. Love has one component which is called bonding. And this is what actually connects us to one another. It's what actually attaches us to one another. We bond with people, and this is actually driven hormonally. It's actually a nervous system function that keeps us connected to one another. Love has another component which is called caring, which means that, I have such good feelings when I think of you, when I'm with you, and when I'm sharing my time with you, that I want to make sure that your life is as comfortable as possible. I want to share all the feelings that are flowing in my heart because of you. This usually arises when you're somebody who you love, you're in their presence, your heart really just opens. And you really want to give everything of yourself. And then love also has the components of attraction. And this attraction is physical attraction, it's intellectual attraction, it can be spiritual attraction, but it has a component of desire. There is a component of wanting. When you really, really want somebody, sometimes you see someone and you feel this zing, you feel this magnetism, you feel this electricity, you feel this spark between the two of you. And you want to be with them. There is this force that pushes you to go towards them. And you want to know how you can pull them towards you, how you can attract them towards you. So love has this components of bonding, whereby you want to attach to them, and caring about them, whereby you want to give and to receive from them, and this magnetic, energetic, physical desire. So when you combine all of these things, you get love. And love has, no matter how you express it, it has these components. In some people, the attraction is more, the caring is less, the bonding is more or less. We all have different mixes of these, but I'd like to submit to you that these components are very, very important components, and they are parts of love. So if you agree, please type into the chat, I agree. If any of you recognize this. So now there is love, but love in and of itself comes in different flavors. And the flavor that I want to talk about now is healthy love. I want to talk about healthy expressions, because love can exist, but love can also express itself in an unhealthy way. Or love can be used as a kind of blanket to cover other emotions, and that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about love which uplifts, love which expands, and love, the kind of love that I'm talking about, healthy love, is kind of love that leaves you feeling better after you've received it, after you've experienced it, than you were before you received it and before you experienced it. I'm not talking about negative expressions of love like codependency or narcissism or things like that. So, in order for us to experience love, we need skills. In other words, even though we're born out of our mother's womb and we have this instinct to love, to attach to our mothers, and our mothers instinctively love us, and our caregivers, our fathers, brothers, sisters, all the people who care for us in our family or origin, even though they love us instinctively, so we have that, how can I say, we have that beginning, we have that leg up from nature. But we need something more than just our instincts in order to find love that is healthy for us, in order for us to nurture that love, and in order for us to sustain that love for the long term. We need much more than our instincts. Our instincts are good, they're just the basis, but we need to have some other skills on top of that. So in order to bond, you do need relationship skills in order to maintain that bond. In order to show that you care for someone, you need some relationship skills in order to demonstrate so that your acts of caring can be received as acts of caring. Because we all have different expressions and definitions of this. And attraction is another factor. I'm sure that you've had the case whereby, somebody was attracted to you, but you weren't attracted to them in the same degree or to the same extent that they were attracted to you. And it was kind of one-sided, it was kind of asymmetrical. And sometimes many people receive a lot of unwanted attention, the type of attraction that, they do not really like. So the fact that you may be attracted to someone doesn't necessarily mean that you're expressing that attraction would be welcome to them. Maybe if you express your attraction for them, you would be violating their boundary. So you need to have some certain skills in order to respect people's boundaries and also engage in them in a win-win way. And we're going to take a look at that. So, now, healthy loving requires relationship skills. But the thing is, nobody teaches them these relationship skills when they were young. How many of you went to a class called relationship class in school? Anybody? Can you type in the chat. I certainly didn't. And how many people, took a relationship exam in school when they were young? Yeah, Shai says not me. I know. No, very, very, very few people actually have, formal training or formal skill building in relationships. And yet, some of us, learn how to ride a bicycle. Many of us learn how to drive a car. Many of us know how to read. We all know how to write. We all know how to operate our computers. These are all skills that we've acquired. But how about getting some skills to know how to love somebody such that when you express love to them, it can be received and interpreted as love, and such that when they express love to you, you can receive and interpret them as love, all while maintaining your integrity, all while maintaining your boundaries, and all while interacting in a win-win way. That's what I'm really talking about, and that's what we need, especially now in this day and age whereby a lot of our communication is electronic. A lot of people now, they meet people not face-to-face, they meet people online, and even when they meet people face-to-face, they don't spend a lot of time with them together. Now, plus the fact that we are all on lockdown, makes things even more difficult. So if we want to have better interactions and more loving interactions with one another, we have to be a little bit more skillful. We have to upskill ourselves. So it stands to reason that if we have relationship problems, it's an indicator that there is a skills gap. It's an indicator that we don't have the kind of information that we need in order for us to make those kinds of connections that we want to make. We don't have the information that we need in order for us to put ourselves in the environments where we are going to be with the people that we want to be with. Or conversely, maybe we don't have the skills and the information that we need to extract ourselves from situations which are no longer healthy for us. It all boils down to relationship skills. Now, I don't want to make you feel bad. It's not my intention to make you feel that, oh my God, Tony is saying that I don't have relationship skills just because something went wrong in my relationship. It's a problem which all of us face. Nobody was born, apart from some very, very few people, knowing everything they need to know about having healthy, happy, sustainable relationships. It's an area where we could all use some help. We could all do with some help. And don't feel bad. Don't feel guilty. The past is the past. You're here now, and you're taking steps to make a better future. So I commend you, and let's do something positive with this. So, when you look at relationship problems, there are 5 key areas which are a part of every single problem between couples in relationships, and also between singles who are trying to make a connection and that connection doesn't work. This is cross-cultural, it's universal. I have people who've tested this in 43 different countries in Asia, in the Americas, in Europe, and in Africa. And I've got some fans and colleagues in my audience who are in Oceania, who are in New Zealand, and in Australia also. And whenever I'm diagnosing or, listening to people's problems, they are clustered. I found out they're clustered in these areas. And just bear with me and let's see what these are. The first challenge that people find is with ineffective communication. Now, communication, like right now, we are communicating. I'm speaking, you're listening. Communication involves speaking, listening, hearing, paying attention, understanding, and receiving a message. In communication, a message is actually transmitted from one person to another person. It doesn't always have to be by sound. You can communicate a lot with your face. You can frown, you can smile, you can look indifferent, you can look unapproachable. You can express so many things. You can express hostility, you can express anger, you can express being reserved, you can express fear, you can express so many emotions, using your body without using words. But one of the biggest ways that we communicate with one another is through words and through our eyes, what we see, what we hear, and what we say to one another. And usually we want to convey some form of meaning to one another when we communicate to them. When we're babies and we cry, usually we cry because we're either scared, we're in pain, or, we are angry. Usually those cries are a signal to our caregivers, to our mothers and our caregivers, that there's something wrong with us. Our mothers, if they're very attuned to us, they will respond. They will actually try to find out what's the matter, and they will try to soothe us if they are securely attached, if they are attuned, if they are wired that way. But sometimes we do not get the response from the environment that we want to get, and that can really, really set our nervous systems up to respond to the environment in which we have in extreme ways, in ways in which our nervous system weren't actually designed to respond. Sometimes if we grow up in an environment which is very, very dangerous, which is very, very hostile, we may shut down and withdraw and have a predominance of fear in us. Or at other times, when we grow up in an environment which is very chaotic and insecure, we are actually hypervigilant and we actually go looking for reassurance wherever we can find it, because we try to find some form of stability and anchor, some form of reassurance in other people. and we are always on the lookout for someone or something that can ease our mind, that can soothe us. And so there are different ways of doing that. And communication actually is a form of an energy exchange, actually. It's a way of exchanging energy. And in relationships, normally we want to exchange that energy. Usually it's pleasure-based, i.e. it's based on the attraction. We want to express our connection through our bond. We want to please our partner, or we want to be pleased, and we want to receive love. And whenever there is a relationship breakdown, one of the things that usually suffer are communication. And we get stuck in ineffective patterns of communication. And one way that we can use communication is to express love, but more often than not, when couples are having problems, usually communication can be used to express hurt, it can be used to express pain, it can be used as a weapon. Even if you're not expressly shouting, you can say something that could really, really wound or hurt somebody in your vicinity, especially a loved one. And a lot of us communicate in ways that are very hurtful to our partners, and we don't even mean it. And we need to be able to communicate properly and effectively in order to make sure that if there is a break in the relationship, or if there's a threat to the bond between us, we need to be able to use communication in order to be able to find out what is wrong and to repair that relationship. So we need to be able to have good listening skills to actually listen to our partner. We need to actually be able to pay attention to what our partner is saying, especially in this day and age where everybody has a smartphone or a tablet or is watching television. People now have very, very short attention spans, and that's not very good when you're really trying to communicate something that's important to you. And also, sometimes when we do not pay attention, or we hear and we do not understand, that is a cause for frustration. I can't tell you how many times I've been stuck trying to get my point across to a loved one by saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't work. And shame on me. My responsibility is to make sure that what I'm trying to convey, what I'm trying to communicate, is understood by the person I'm trying to talk to. And if it isn't understood, it's my responsibility to try and find out how they best receive information and how to communicate that information to them. So communication is really like a foundation of everything in relationships. Without communication, without being able to speak, without being able to hear, and without being able to listen, and hearing and listening are not exactly the same thing. You can actually hear words, but you have to listen for meaning, because words can mean different things. And sometimes silence in and of itself is a communication. Sometimes not saying something is actually saying something really, really, really loudly. And we have to actually take all of these things into account, especially with a loved one, whereby little things can mean so much and can have such a huge impact. So communication, usually a breakdown in communication, ineffective communication, is usually an indicator of problems, because it means that the meaning that is trying to be conveyed between two people is getting lost. It's getting lost in the space between them. And when it gets lost, people start assuming that they know what their partner is saying. This happens quite a lot in long-term relationships or relationships between parents and children, whereby you're attached, so you spend a lot of time together, so you become so familiar, but you become so familiar that you think inaccurately that you know everything there is to know about your partner. Well, I'm here to reveal a secret to you. You don't know everything there is to know about your partner. And why do I say that? Because we human beings, we're changing, we're growing every single day. And number two, we human beings, we're emotional. We're not logical, because we're changing, because we're growing, we change our minds. We change our minds based on new information that comes to us. Even if we've held the belief for decades and decades and decades, doesn't mean that we will hold that belief forever and ever. We're constantly receiving inputs, receiving stimuli from the environment and from people, from places, from things, from books, from things that we see, from things that we hear, from other influencers and influences, and reinterpreting that information based on our past. But we always have the capability to change our minds. So if we have the capability to change our minds, we usually do. And sometimes when we change our minds, we don't communicate to a partner that we've changed our mind. So something may have been true last week, but this week, because circumstances have changed and environments have changed, I may feel differently from what I felt last week. And this happens a lot. I don't mean to generalize, but it happens a lot that men in relationships come to me and they say, I can't believe it. I had an agreement with my lady and we both agreed that we would do something in this particular way. And that was the agreement in the past. And I was doing it that way. And now she's changed her mind and she didn't tell me. But, and I say to him that, people change their mind. And he's saying, but no, she shouldn't change her mind. We had an agreement. And if he held her to the letter and the law of that agreement without taking into consideration the fact that she could change her mind, because if she changed her mind, she must do it for a reason. But if for him the agreement is much more important than the present set of circumstances, and she doesn't agree that way, there are going to be problems. Even if when he communicates, she says yes. Many times a yes in a relationship is not exactly a yes. Many times a yes in a relationship is actually a no or a maybe. And these are examples of how people have problems. Ineffective communication. Another problem that people have is blaming one another. Somebody does something which offends you, and you take a meaning and make a judgment, and then you project that judgment onto the person who offended you. Maybe they didn't mean to offend you. Maybe they did. But, what you say and how you say it are equally important. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. It's the tone of your voice. It's the expression on your face. You may walk out of the room and close the door, or you may walk out of the room and slam the door. In both cases, you've walked out of the room, but by slamming the door, you've communicated something very different to the people in the room than if you walked out of the door and just pulled the door shut. So communication actually is one of the fundamental, it's like the foundation upon which all relationships are built. And there are different communication styles, and different people respond to different communication styles in different ways. Some people love, for example, I'll just give an example, like with mobile phones. Some people love texting, sending WhatsApp messages or sending texts. And people who love texting and who are very, very on the ball, some people love for their texts to be answered immediately. And if you answer the text immediately, that in and of itself, the timing of when you answer their text they interpret that as a form of communication. And for these people who expect an immediate response, if you don't respond to their text immediately, they will read some meaning into that. So the timing of how you do things in and of itself can be a form of communication. I have a friend who is really, really good. When we used to have these phones called Blackberries, he was like a piano player. He could type on a Blackberry like a shorthand typist, like 100 words a minute. And when he got these new smartphones, he even typed even faster. And every time he would send me a message, he expected me to respond within a minute. I'm the complete opposite. When I receive a message, if I'm doing something important, I won't answer. Why? Because I'm doing something important. But then my friend used to get really, really upset with me if I answered him after an hour. And he used to feel that I was disrespecting him by not answering. And one day he called me up when I didn't answer a text. He asked me a question and I didn't answer immediately. He called me up and he told me that he didn't like me disrespecting him. And he started accusing me of being rude to him and not respecting him. And I was like, what are you talking about? He says, well, if you respected me, you would have answered my text immediately. But you always answer my text after 20 minutes or even after an hour. And that means that you don't value my time. You don't value me. But that was just not the case. We just had different communication styles. And it took some time, after we both cooled down, because I felt offended when he accused me. And I also responded not in a very, very good way to him. But after we cooled down, it took some time for us to realize that, we just had different communication styles. And there was no offense mended, neither from him to me or from me to him. But if we interpreted each other's communication styles in the way that we do things, we would read some offense in there, or we could read some offense in there. And this goes the other way. Sometimes somebody does something, and if you misinterpret what they do, you may think that they are giving you a positive signal, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're smiling at you, but they're not smiling at you because they're happy. Maybe they're smiling at you out of sarcasm. This happens too. So communication is one of the typical stumbling blocks in all relationship problems. And the moral of the story is to try and find out what communication, the meaning that you're conveying to your partner. If you have a partner, try and find out their communication style. Try and find out the best way for you to communicate with them such that your message lands, and also have a conversation with them and teach them, tell them how you prefer to be interacted with. And if you do that, and if you keep on doing that, if both of you, because you're not going to get it right all the time, we're all human and we all change and we all evolve, but with a little bit of goodwill and a little bit of persistence and a lot of feedback, you can work out a way whereby you have an efficient way of communicating with one another, whereby what you mean is actually what is heard and what is received, and that way you can smooth over a lot of problems. So ineffective communication is one of the biggest struggles that people face in relationships. The next struggle that I see a lot of is dishonesty. And this is really, really tricky because the truth is very subjective. What do I mean by that? I mean, something which is true for me may not be the truth for you. So for example, I may go out and if the temperature is 18 degrees, I may say, it's cold. I'm originally from Africa. 18 degrees where we come from in Africa isn't very warm, believe me. But here in Europe, especially when you're coming out of winter, in spring, 18 degrees is warm. So if my partner says, hey, what's the temperature like outside? And I say it's cold, and she wears a sweater based on what I told her, and she goes outside and it's 18 degrees and she starts sweating, you can imagine a scenario where she feels that, I did really tell her that, what I said wasn't really accurate. But in my world, 18 degrees is cold, but in her world, 18 degrees may be quite warm. Now, just imagine, this is not the case, but now just imagine that we got into an argument because she accused me of not being truthful when I told her that the weather was cold. And then I felt offended that, oh my God, how dare you think that I'm a liar? You are now, trying to cast a negative description on my character, on my morality. You're accusing me of being dishonest. How dare you? This is a very, very trivial example, my friends, but it happens a lot. And people in relationships misinterpret each other's actions as being dishonest if they do not have a shared definition of what honesty means. There's some partners in some partnerships where they want to know everything about one another. Where for them, the truth is, I must know everything about you. What happened to you today? What didn't happen to you today? How are you feeling? If anything significant happens in your life, I want to know about it. For me, that's honesty because that's full disclosure. But there are other people for whom that's too much. That's like an invasion of their privacy. There are other people for whom they have a kind of boundary, and on one side of the boundary is what they share with their partners, but on the other side of the boundary is what's private. For example, you have couples who have telephones and they know each other's password, so they can get into each other's telephones. And that's the agreement that they have in their relationship. You have some other couples for whom that is just going too far. They want to be with each other, they trust each other, they love each other, but they don't want to share passwords, they don't want to exchange passwords, because for them, their telephone is private. Now just imagine two people meet up, and one of them is a person who is a password sharer, who is, is very, very free, wants to share their password and wants to know their partner's password. And the other person is a little bit more reserved and a little bit more private and doesn't want to share the password. And then there's an argument, and then the first person says, but why don't you want to share your password? What are you hiding? Because if you had nothing to hide, you would be okay with sharing your password. And the other person might sit down and say, but no, you're making a false accusation. You're accusing me of, being dishonest. I'm not dishonest. I just do not want to share my password with you because that's my business. And that part of my business, you stay out. And sometimes if you have these kinds of misunderstandings, the misunderstanding exists because they don't have the same view of what the word honesty means. And so one partner feels that the other partner is dishonest. And I don't know about you, there is nothing that breaks trust quicker than dishonesty. If you trust someone and you believe, rightfully or wrongfully, that they're dishonest, you're going to withdraw that trust and your relationship will suffer. And so one thing that I really advise people who I counsel is make sure you know what honesty means to your partner, and make sure you know what honesty means to you, and use your communication skills to explain to them and listen to them. Have this conversation in your relationships. Come to a common understanding of what honesty may mean in your relationship. Maybe for you personally, honesty means A, and your partner, honesty means B, but because you're interacting and you're in a relationship and you want to have harmony, you decide on a meaning of honesty and use that meaning of honesty to define what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in your relationship. Do not assume. No matter how much in love you are, no matter how much in lust you are with your partner, don't assume that your definition of honesty is identical to theirs. There may be an overlap, but the overlap may be like this, not exactly like this. The overlap may be like that. So, accusations of dishonesty, real and imagined, are a killer in relationships. The third struggle is a power struggle. And usually this is a kind of phase that relationships actually go through. Relationships go through a kind of infatuation phase whereby, you are, usually it's sparked up by attraction, and you have this huge rush of chemicals and dopamine and serotonin, and you just can't keep apart from them. And it's as if like you're temporarily insane and your whole world seems to revolve around this person. And when you think of this person and when you're with them or without them, your whole body lights up and you feel on top of the world. It's kind of all-consuming, oceanic emotion, and that's wonderful. But that phase doesn't last forever. And usually, people get scared of losing the bond and the connection that they have. And they settle into a kind of routine afterwards, and that routine kind of sets in, and usually it gets replaced. That oceanic infatuation gets replaced by patterns of control. And then each part of the couple tries to impose, either directly, if you're very, very assertive, or indirectly, if you're passive aggressive, they try to impose their own rules, their own beliefs, and their own values on one another. There's a power struggle. A bit of that is normal because there's always a kind of dynamic power imbalance. But when it escalates, usually if there's poor communication, if there are arguments about honesty, and if there's a preponderance of, one person wants to dominate the other person without collaborating and negotiating, and they start making unilateral decisions without informing the other person or without consulting the other person, which are all aspects of communication, then a power struggle ensues, whereby people want either to stay stuck in a pattern or to change a pattern through collaboration and teamwork, but through force. Either force, overt force, which is very, very visible, i.e. through shouting and imposing and, being generally disagreeable, or they can do it in a passive way by pretending that they're a victim, by, playing the woe is me and all sorts of negative, dysfunctional, passive-aggressive means. And all of that is a power struggle. It's an underhand way to get your will to be done, despite your partner's opposition to it. And so power struggles usually means that both couples are not on the same page. They cannot stick to any agreement, and usually when they say yes, sometimes they say yes when they mean no, and sometimes they say no when they mean yes, but they say no just because they want to demonstrate their power, or to upset the other person, or to get revenge. So we're talking about now that love, that caring has now moved into a shadow frequency, and that love has now turned into aggression. And sometimes that love actually transforms into hate, unfortunately. So power struggles are also a key indicator, struggles that couples often have when they are in trouble, when their relationship is in trouble. Struggle number 4 relates to sex and intimacy. And this is where, the erotic dimension of your relationship can be distorted, and it can be used to manipulate or control. In the worst possible case, this one, it actually involves, violation of people's boundaries, and it's a crime for you to use sexuality in order to control somebody else in the forms of assault and things like that. There's been a lot of, news reports lately. I don't have to name any names, but literally every single week you hear about people who abuse their power and manipulate other people and use sexuality to coerce other people into doing things that they know that they should not do. That's the more extreme version of this, but in couples, it may happen through control, whereby people use sex not as a form of love, not as a form of bonding, not as a form of connection, but as a form of control, as a weapon, as punishment, either by imposing it on somebody or withdrawing it and using it as an underhand tool. So sexuality usually is an indicator of the health of a relationship. When people get together, they have their sexual and erotic patterns in the ways that they interact. And usually when that changes, sometimes people's conflicts bleed over into the sexual area, and they use that as a way either to distance themselves from their partner, or to physically punish their partner, or to physically actually harm their partners. And that's a problem which shows up a lot. Even though on the surface things may seem normal, but underneath the surface there are lots of undercurrents which are quite painful, quite debilitating, and quite dysfunctional. Finally, the 5th area where I see lots of struggles is using money to manipulate also and control. And money has been used as a tool to, money is in and of itself is neutral, Money can be used to lift people up, but it can be used also to destroy people. You can use money to, feed someone, or you could use money to cause somebody else to starve. And in couples, again, money is used as a proxy for power. And people have indirect communication. So usually when the normal communication channels are not working the way that they're supposed to work, and when there's a little bit of or a lot of dishonesty in the interaction between the couples, they can a lot of times communicate with one another using money, either by spending wildly, by hiding money from one another, by using money as a weapon, as a way to blame one another, by using money as a way to punish or diminish one another, to control one another. Again, financial problems usually financial problems are symptoms. They're not actually the cure. Actually, if you look at financial problems, usually you find other emotions underneath them, which are actually driving those financial problems. And money problems are usually a symptom of something that is not quite right going on in the relationship, either within an individual, one of the partners within themselves, i.e. they have a financial pattern that doesn't work, is not empowering, irrespective of whether they are in a relationship or not, or the combination of two people, or both. So, when you have one or more of these struggles, these 5 struggles, what do you have? Instead of you being attached, you have a lot of distrust. Instead of you caring for one another, you have a lot of resentment. And instead of you being attracted to one another, you have a lot of withdrawal. So basically, where there was love, now there is, I'm not going to say hate, but now there is indifference, or there is pain, or it could lie on a spectrum. But whatever it is, that connection that exists between people now is of a very, very different nature than what existed before and what they actually desire for themselves and for one another. And these sometimes lead to breakups, very, very painful breakups. Sometimes there are children involved. Sometimes there are 2 families which were connected like that, and because the kids break up, they're broken. People take sides, friends are abandoned, people have to move. There are all sorts of physical, tangible consequences, and also deep emotional, internal consequences. Sometimes we are wounded so badly from these kinds of situations that we cannot function. Sometimes it actually affects our health. Sometimes it affects our children. Our environments may change very, very drastically. So, what's the good news? The good news is that despite these 5 problems, now that we've identified them, now we can actually, there are easy to implement steps that we can use right away, that we can use to repair our relationships, or if we're not in a relationship, to actually prepare ourselves to be in a relationship, so that when the relationship arrives in our life, we can actually use it to grow and make something positive with it, rather than repeat old mistakes and old patterns that we had. So what we want to do is to use this information to nurture our connections, to make any connection that we have even better, and to strengthen the connections that we have with one another. That's our key. So, if we now look at happy couples who are together long term, and I'm not just talking about people who are together long term because they're married, because they could be married long term, or they could live with each other for decades and decades and absolutely hate each other, or have a completely dysfunctional relationship. It doesn't mean that because you stay with somebody for a very, very long time, that doesn't mean longevity, does not mean that your relationship is healthy. Longevity is just that, it's longevity. What it means is that you've been attached for a long time, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily mean that you care for one another. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're attracted to one another. Remember, I said that healthy love has a component of attachment, it has a component of caring, and it has a component of attraction. And all those three things must be together in order for love to exist. You can be together, you can live together for a very, very long time. In other words, you are attached, you live under the same roof. But it could be that, there's no love between you, and it could be that there is no attraction between you. And I submit that that is not love. That is less than you are capable of, and that is less than you deserve. And if I can help it, and if you're willing to receive my help, or the help of anybody else who you wish to consult, I believe that you deserve to have love. I believe that you deserve to be happy. I believe that there is goodness inside of you, and that goodness must be shared. Because when you share that goodness, and when you share that joy, and when you share that positive energy that you have, your light lights up, just as you light up the world, and you make the world a better place. So let's study success. How do happy couples, how do they do it? How do successful couples, what are the things that they do? Well, number one is that they communicate in empowering ways. How do they do that? They know how to express love to one another. Different people have different flavors of love. A Reverend Pastor called Gary Chapman, he wrote one of the best-selling books of all time. It's called 5 Love Languages. I highly recommend it. It's by a gentleman called Reverend Gary Chapman. And he teaches us that there are different ways of expressing love. And we all have a favorite way of expressing love, and our partners have a favorite way of expressing love. And when you're in the infatuation stage at the beginning of a relationship, you do everything because you want to put your best foot forward. But after a while, when that infatuation dies down and you settle into your routines and your patterns, then, you start defaulting to your way of expressing love. And we've all heard the golden rule, and the golden rule says, treat others the way that you want to be treated. This is one area in relationships where the golden rule does not apply. You do not communicate with people only in the way that you want to be treated. Communicate with the intention, but the action, you have to communicate in the way that the people best receive communication. Okay? Now, your intention may be the same. Your intention may be to love, but the way you express love may be different. And it's your responsibility as a good partner, as a good lover, as a good companion, to find out what your partner's love language is. And it's their responsibility to also be interested in you and care about you enough to find out what your love language is. And you teach each other, you help each other along so that you can express love to one another in healthy, empowering ways. And couples who are successful in relationships, they do this. And they don't leave it to chance, and they don't assume. Similarly, in relationships, you're going to get it wrong, and your partner is going to get it wrong. They're going to do something to you that you don't like, not on purpose, but it still ends up hurting you. And a way to do that hurt can damage your relationship. So what do you want to do? Successful couples, it's not that they don't fight, it's that they put a lot of energy and attention into repairing their relationships whenever there's been a rupture, whenever there's been a break in that relationship, whenever they've undergone a threat. So if they argue, they may argue, and some may even argue with intensity and may disagree, but they always seek methods to re-establish their connection, to repair their connection. And one of the best ways of doing that is knowing how to say sorry in a way that your sorry is received. And the different ways of saying sorry. Some people just need to hear the word sorry. If I break a glass, when I was young, if I break a glass, I had to say I was sorry. And that was it in my household. In some other households, if you break a glass, you saying sorry wasn't good enough. You had to go and buy a glass. You had to replace the glass. And only after you've repaired what you broke was your sorry accepted. In other households, saying sorry again wasn't enough, and replacing the glass wasn't enough. You actually had to ask for forgiveness. So you had to give them the opportunity to explicitly forgive you. And only when they took that opportunity and forgave you was the relationship restored. Now, I'm not going to sit down and say which way is the right way or which way is the wrong way, but what I am saying is that if you love somebody, find out the best way of saying sorry to them and teach them the best way of saying sorry to you so that you can say sorry to one another and so that your sorry brings you back together and works. Because saying sorry or just saying the words I apologize or I'm sorry a lot of times just doesn't cut it. It's just not good enough. It's necessary, but in a lot of cases it's not sufficient. So don't assume. Okay? Another way in communication, what the ways that successful couples communicate is they know how to ask for love. Now, asking, especially when you're asking for love and when you're asking for attention, makes us feel quite vulnerable. And because we're adults and some of us are very proud and we have egos, we don't want to show our vulnerability even to our loved ones. And sometimes we need our loved ones' attention. Sometimes we need their time. We need their touch. We need their empathy. We need their wisdom. We need their advice. And sometimes we have to ask for it. And a lot of people find that uncomfortable. A lot of people find that, makes them feel nervous, makes them feel anxious, because it makes them feel small and insecure. Now, I hope that in your relationship, even if you're not there yet, you're trying to long enough such that you can be vulnerable. And if your partner comes to you with a request, I hope, I pray, that you would receive their request in the spirit in which it was asked for. Because nobody is perfect all the time. Nobody is strong all the time. Nobody has all the answers all the time. Everybody needs tenderness. Everybody needs to rest. Everybody needs to be soothed. And I believe that as a partner, as a romantic partner, you have a big part to play in that. So if your partner wants to be soothed, maybe they don't approach you in the way that you like, or in a way that would make you feel receptive towards them. That's okay. But you can show them, you can coach them, you can educate them, you can ask them, you can inform them, and you also can inform your partner, about the best ways to approach you, and you can ask your partners about the best way to approach them, so that you have your own secret way of saying, can I get some love from you? And you're not dismissed, or you're not humiliated, or you're not rejected. Because when you're vulnerable and your heart is open and you're asking for some love, and your attachment figure, the person who you love rejects you or shuts you down or mocks you or makes you feel afraid, that's like somebody stabbing a dagger in your heart. It wounds you in a way that is very, very hard to recover from. So don't do that. If you can't love your partner, help them, show them, be kind to them, show empathy. But don't show cruelty and indifference or rejection or humiliation when they come to you for love, even if it's inconvenient, because one day you're going to need that. And just as you deserve it, they deserve it too. So I just want to zip by because time is going. So how do successful couples handle honesty? Well, they do what I said. They inform each other where they stand on honesty. They inform each other about their standards of honesty. And then they use communication to negotiate and to be honest. And, to say that, okay, is this a must? Must you do this? Or is this a should, Are there any gray areas, or is it black and white, Is a no a hard no, or is a yes a real yes? They talk about these things. They find a shared understanding of what is honest behavior in their relationship, and they try to stick to it. And no, they don't succeed all the time. But when they fall by the wayside, when they make a mistake, they try to repair the mistake. Which is why I reminded you about, you need to know how to say sorry. And your partner needs to know how to say sorry to you in a way that works. So you have to create shared honesty. And a lot of people lie in relationships because of fear. And they lie because they feel small, because they're scared, because they feel that if they tell the truth, you're going to be angry with them, you're going to hurt them, you're going to abandon them, or you will have some hold over them. You'll have some power. There'll be some power game. There'll be a shift in the power dynamics, which they don't want to go through. And a lot of that is rooted in childhood needs and childhood patterns. So dishonesty is going to show up in your relationship because nobody's perfect, but there are positive, empowering ways of handling that. And there are ways of taking steps upfront to minimize the impact and minimize the probability that dishonesty will be a feature in your relationship. Because I don't know anybody who wants to be in a relationship where dishonesty has a major place in it, where dishonesty is in the driving seat. That's not healthy. How do empowered couples, how do they handle teamwork? Well, what they do is that they they're honest with one another, they communicate with one another, and they negotiate. And they state their case. They state what they believe, they state their red lines, they state their boundaries, and they state their wishes and their desires. And, they decide who does what, how do you do it, when do you do it. They decide the standards. Is it okay for the house to be untidy? They decide who does errands, who pays the bills, who washes the dishes, who does the groceries. All those little day-to-day things that make your life go normally, they decide that together. If they share a car and one person is driving the car and the petrol tank is nearly empty, they decide up front, okay, are you going to leave the petrol tank empty at night, or are you going to at least put a little bit of petrol so that your spouse, when they use the car, the petrol tank isn't empty? They have agreements. And the thing is, in relationships, any agreements that you negotiate usually can be renegotiated. Why? Because things change. So it's always good for you to keep checking. Oh, we have this agreement. Is this agreement still valid? No, it's not valid. Why not? Okay, and that's where you see the importance of communicating, and you see the importance of being honest. You see, teamwork here, it still depends on, number one, communication and honesty. You can't be on the same page. You can't collaborate effectively if you don't communicate and if you're not honest. But if you communicate and you're honest, then you have all the ingredients to be a good teammate. And then for you to work out who is in the best position to do what, and when, and how, in a way that's win-win for both of you at the same time. Successful couples, they have a good, healthy, sexual, and intimate life. And again, this is based on agreements. What type of intimacy is acceptable? How do we create intimate moments? Oh, for me, a touch is too much. I would rather that you did this before you touch me. I know that you want to do that, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable with doing that. I'm not going to make you ashamed for having your wants and want your desires, but that's not something that I feel I can do. Let's do this instead. Or what about this? They plan. They take time. They actually make time to nurture that, intimate, attraction-based part of their relationship. They don't leave it to chance. And they communicate openly. I mean, sexuality is a form of communication. It's an energetic form of communication. It's a physical form of communication. Sexuality can be used to express love. It can be used for stress relief. It can be used as an adventure. It can be used for self-discovery. It can be used for so many things. And when you have two people and you have that erotic energy in between them, literally, the universe is your oyster. There's so many possibilities. But some of those possibilities are more positive and empowering, and some of those possibilities are negative and disempowering. So you should use communication, honesty, and teamwork in order to make your sexual and intimate life win-win, positive, and empowering for both of you. And that's what successful couples do. And then, of course, finally, money. What successful couples do with money is that they come to a set of agreements that they can live with. Usually, money means different things to different people. For some people, money means comfort. For some people, money means power. For some people, money means joy. For some people, I don't want to have anything to do with money because I grew up in a household where my father used to control my mother because he had money and my mother never had money. And so I don't want to recreate those dynamics in my adult life. Therefore, I don't want to have anything to do with money. So you deal with all of the money. So there's so many different variations and possibilities, again, with money. But successful couples, they explicitly sit down, they have conversations. Whenever there's a financial challenge, they look at it, they don't hide from it, they don't run from it. Even if one person is in the driver's seat about how money is supposed to be handled in that couple, that decision that that person is in the driver's seat was taken jointly. And the three important things to pay attention to are how money is earned by the couple, how money is spent, and how money is saved, and also where money is kept. Different people have different arrangements. Some people keep money in a joint account. Some people have a shared expense account and 2 private accounts. Some people have, if they're children, an account for the school. Who manages the money? Are there any limits? Should there be any disclosure on who does what with the money? If I spend $1,000, do I have to come back and tell my partner immediately I've spent it? Or is it acceptable for me not to say anything about it until we're overdrawn? Is it acceptable for us to go in the red and be overdrawn? All sorts of things like that. Should money be invested in the house or should money be saved? All of those decisions, they take communication, they take honesty, and they take teamwork in order to address. Okay? So these are the 5 partnership principles in order to help you to go from struggling in relationships to cuddling in relationships. Even if you're single, I would advise you, strongly urge you to beef up your communication skills. What is your love language? What is your language of apology? How do you say, do you love me? How do you want people to ask you for love, for example? Are you honest with yourself or are you in denial? What is your standard? What is your truth? Can you express your truth to a loved one? Or do you need some help and some coaching in that? Is it safe for you to speak your truth? Or do you feel unsafe because of something? And if you do, what can be done to address that so that you have a sense of safety when you're telling your truth? How do you collaborate? What are your standards? Are you somebody who's late all the time? Are you somebody who's lazy and you want all of your partner to do all of the work? Or are you a workaholic? Are you a perfectionist? And every time your partner wants to help, you shush them away, you stop them from helping. All of these things have an influence on your relationships. How do you express your erotic desire for your partner? Do you use sex as a way to numb yourself and to disconnect? So you're having sex, but you're using sex as a way to disconnect from one another and just getting lost in your body senses. Or are you using sex as a way to control them? All of these things, again, you can use positively in an empowering way or in a disempowering way. The same goes for money. Are you somebody who, as soon as you get money, do you spend all of the money because you have it? I know some people who say that, hey, I can die tomorrow, so what's the point of me dying with money in my bank account? Let me spend it now. There's some other people who grew up in an environment where they didn't have any money and they suffered a lot and they never wanted to suffer again like that. So they're very careful with their money and they live well below their means. They may have $5 in their accounts, but they live as if they only have 5 cents in their account. That's another extreme. And there's this whole space in between. And this space in between can be navigated by open communication, by honest communication, and by a collaborative attitude and teamwork. So these are the 5 principles that I wanted to share with you. And I hope that you find some use in this. If you look at this diagram here, you see healthy relationships are based on communication. Communication is right on the bottom of this pyramid. And then on top of that, we have honesty. And then on top of that, we have teamwork. So honesty depends on communication. Teamwork depends on honesty and communication. And then at the apex here, you have sex and money. And sex depends on teamwork, honesty, and communication. Powerful, empowered sexuality depends on that. And good money management depends on teamwork, honesty, and communication, with communication being at the base. So this is how I recommend that you go from struggling to cuddling. And so the results, if you apply these principles in your life, and there's any distrust, if there's any resentment, if there's any withdrawal, and if your love doesn't exist, by applying and nurturing these principles and cultivating them, you will get back to the situation whereby the bond that you have is stronger, the care and the love and affection that you have will grow again, and the attraction and desire that you had will get sparked. And even if you're single, you can use these principles to enhance your life and to make you an even more attractive prospect who can attract high quality people who want to come into your life. And you know how to attract good people and good energy in and keep bad people and disempowering energy out. So, to summarize, in order for you to sustain a deep, loving, authentic relationship, you need to take care of the bond between you, the connection, and you need to take care in ways of each other that maintain your passion for one another, your care for one another, and your attraction. But that's easier said than done. In many countries, the divorce rate is close to and even exceeding 50%. And a lot of people are looking for love, but they don't find love. Even though they may actually be in relationships with good people, but they aren't compatible or they can't actually make it work. So, to succeed, you need the secret to find, nurture, and grow love in yourself. As an individual, you need to cultivate self-love, and then from that place of self-love, you cultivate love with somebody else. So love begins from within. It's not that you've got a hole in your heart and somebody else needs to complete that hole. No, you are complete in and of yourself, and it's your responsibility to love yourself and find a partner that loves themselves and share. And even if both of you came from a broken place, you can help each other, you can lift each other up, you can sustain each other. Sometimes one person will be stronger, one person will be weaker, but that's all partnership. That's what it's all about. So what's the secret? The secret to a happy, sustained, loving life is the right relationship skills. You need the right skills, you need to make the right relationship decisions, and you need the right relationship support. You need those 3 things. It's not just skills. You need to make good decisions, and you need to have support. Support from one another. And if you don't have support from one another, support from the environment around you. And I'd like to really introduce this from Struggling to Cuddling Relationship Repair Map. It's a complete system that's put together of all the components, all the moving parts that you need in order for you to have a happy, healthy, sustainable relationship. At the base here, you have groundwork. You have a part here which talks about self-clarity, a part here which talks about your vision for the type of relationship you want, what kind of partner you expect, what are your partner expectations, what are the assumptions that you make about the partner that you want. And again, we find here two-way communication as a core skill, honesty as a core skill, teamwork and collaboration as a core skill. And then based on those 3 core skills, we have the advanced skills, which are sex and intimacy, good money management, and parenting and caregiving if you have children. And even if you don't have children, just general taking care of one another. And this is how you go from struggling to cuddling with these 9 components. That's 10 components. And so that's it. I know you may be asking some questions like, okay, right, Tony, I've heard you've talked for nearly 1.5 hours in this workshop. I've been following along, but, How do you let somebody in my inner world without feeling dumb and embarrassed, when you're trying to express yourself? Or maybe some of you are asking yourselves that, how do you trust somebody again if your past, in your history, you've been repeatedly cheated on over and over again? Or, maybe you communicate with your partner, but they don't pay attention to you. Or maybe you don't care about your partner enough to pay attention to them. Or how do you actually discover your partner's love language? How do you use both your head and your heart when you're making decisions, rather than being a robot only using your head, or being very romantic and using your heart and not using your head? How do you combine your head and your heart to get input and make good decisions? And what if, you're a kind of person who you see red flags, you know that something is wrong, but you can't stop yourself. You keep on being with that person, even though you know that you're in a situation that is not going to work out long term. Or maybe, you keep on, you want to choose the right person, but you've had such a terrible experience in the past that you bringing all of your past baggage from past relationships into a new relationship, and your past memories and echoes of your past relationship are sabotaging the relationship you have right now. I.e., you're treating your current partner as if they were your old partner with whom you had bad relationships. How do you stop those dynamics? Yeah. Well, there are absolutely two options that you have that you can do. You can take all of this information that I've given you and you can implement it on your own. And everything that you've heard in this from Struggling to Cuddling workshop, you can actually implement on your own. It's clear, it's simple, they're just 5 steps. You can really do that. Or you could choose to work with me, and I can help you to master the good decisions, and I can help you to actually really embed those skills and use them to consciously create the type of relationships that you want to create to change your future from where it is right now to be better. And so for this one time, there's a brand new opportunity which I'd like to introduce to you. And it's something that I've never ever done before, and it's something that I've never released before. And it's a program, and you have that opportunity right now. It's called the From Struggling to Cuddling Relationship Accelerator program. Now, what is this? It's a 6-week live online training program, and it's based on my acclaimed From Struggling to Cuddling framework. And it brings all the information that I've gathered, not only from myself, but from all of the people that I've studied, plus the actual experiences of the people who I've worked with. It brings it all in a very, very easy to understand, digestible set of programs and a set of classes, which we'll be doing over 6 weeks, and we'll be doing it online. And it doesn't matter whether you've had successful relationships and you want to make it better, or you've had bad relationships. Somebody can find something good in all of the information that we share. There's 6 modules in this, and let me just tell you a little bit about what you will learn in this program. The first module is actually dealing with the foundation. What we're doing is that we want you to get crystal clear on what you want to get out of relationships, because it's very important for you to know what you want. A lot of people don't know what they want in a relationship. They just fall in love or fall in lust, and they get swept away by emotion. And before they know it, they're with somebody, or, they're buying a house together, or they bought a dog together, or, sometimes they even have a baby before they're prepared. A lot of people get swept away by the emotions without actually deciding what is the type of relationship that I want. What is the vision for my relationship? And this model will help you actually get absolutely crystal clear on that. It also helps you to actually clarify your positions on communication, on honesty, on teamwork, on sex and money. Where do you stand on those 5 things? You have to know, so that when you meet somebody, you can actually find out if they're compatible with you early on in the relationship. You can use this information to quickly vet partners or potential partners and see if they are actually aligned with you, or if there's some misalignment. And if there's some misalignment, then you do not have to consider continuing with them. You know, so you can use this module 1 to find out what kind of partner you want and to vet potential partners. In the second week, we'll go to model 2, and that is all about communication. We're going to we'll take practical examples of specific communication pitfalls which undermine all relationships. For example, we'll teach you how to pay attention to your partner. We'll teach you how to recognize when your partner is trying to connect with you and you're not paying attention and it's causing them distress, because some people don't even know that. We'll teach, we'll learn how to better speak so that you're understood, your communication styles, your body language, how to communicate directly, how to ask for what you want directly, how to set boundaries, how to say no, how to say yes so that your yes is a yes and your no is a no. How to ask, do you love me, in a way that, doesn't make you feel shut down, overwhelmed, or belittled. And how, you say I love you by default so that you know your own love language so that you can use that. How to apologize, recurring themes. So it's all about communication in module 2. In module 3, we'll turn to shared honesty. And we'll use communication as the basis, and we'll build on our understanding of communication now to open our horizons on what honesty means. Many couples are together, but they spend all of their times hiding from each other, explicitly lying to each other, or withdrawing and keeping information away from one another. And even if they succeed, you can never be happy in that kind of situation. This module is designed to address that. And it's designed for you to use communication and honesty to increase the level of trust in your relationship. Because trust is really, really important. And trust is something, it's very difficult to build. It's very, very easy for you to actually destroy. We talk about teamwork and communication in module 4. It's about how to manage your hidden expectations. What are the assumptions that you're making about one another? What roles will you play? Who does what? What's the division of labor? Being honest enough to say that you're so important, I need you to do this for me. Overcoming the tendencies to lie when you're angry and hurt and scared, because a lot of people, they lie that they can't do something, and it's a way of expressing a power struggle. It's a way of punishing. They use that as a way to punish. Either they do something in a way that their partner will get upset, or they don't do something in a way that their partner will get upset. So there's a lot of indirect communication in teamwork and collaboration, whereby sometimes people pretend as if they're on the same team, but they're not. How do you recognize those dynamics, and how do you avoid those dynamics? And if you are in those dynamics, what can you do to get out of it? We'll look at that in module 4. Module 5 is all about sex and intimacy. There are many different ways of sexual expression, many ways of being intimate. So we'll talk about how do you know what intimacy means to you, and then what does intimacy mean to your partner? How can you express your intimacy and receive their intimacy? Very important, how do you establish an environment of safety? How are you sure that in your environment, the way that you're expressing to one another is honest and it's not out of fear or out of obligation or out of duty or out of control? So we'll talk about intimacy as in different expressions, as a way of satisfying your needs, as a way of indulging in sensuality, as a way of expressing your love. So there are many different facets. This is a touchy subject, but we'll deal with it in a very respectful way. And the goal here is to elevate the frequency of your relationship and to bring you together, not to be licentious or rude or disrespectful. And finally, in module 6, we'll talk about money. What does money mean to you? What does money represent? How do you bridge money gaps? How do you do that? How do you spend money? How do you save money? Whose money is it? Is it my money? Is it your money? Is it our money? And then there's a bonus. Now, if you register for this course, you can learn with your spouse and your children. So if you pay the investment for this course, the whole family can learn together. And families that learn together succeed together. There's a second bonus, which is a quick start bonus. Just before the program starts, about 2 weeks before the program starts, I'm going to do an hour session just to get you up and running, to get you familiar, so that when we actually start the lessons, we'll actually hit the ground running. You'll have all of the logistics in place and you can be ready. And that's going to take place on the 15th of August. The second bonus is that if you join this program, you're going to have access to a private Facebook group where you can share your experiences, you can swap stories, ask questions, and I will be in that Facebook group every month. I'm going to do 6 live bonus Q&A sessions. I'll look at all the questions which are posted in the group, and I will create a specific question and answer hour-long session, and I'll do Facebook Live. So all of the questions that you had in the class, you can now ask your questions in the Facebook group, and I'll be there to make sure that they're answered. And that group will be open to you for 6 months. And then I'm going to do 2 extra review and implementation calls. Because this is quite new material and there's a lot, it's over 6 weeks, what I've decided to do is to give you a bonus. I'm giving you, do 3 weeks, modules 1 to 3, and then we'll do a review and implementation call in the middle, so that if you're late, you want to catch up, you want to do any review, we can do that then. And then we'll do modules 4, 5, and 6, and then after module 6, we'll do another review and implementation call, so that again, you can ask any questions, you can raise any concerns, and we'll take care of all of your questions and concerns, because I really, really want you to extract the maximum benefits and the maximum value out of our time together. We'll also look at, do a bonus session on parenting and caregiving. Not everybody's in a relationship with children, but when children are around, they're very, very important. They have a very, very high priority. And so I'll make sure I do a session on the typical challenges that couples have in parenting and caregiving. So the question is, of course, what's the investment, Tony? Now, the From Struggling to Cuddling Accelerator Relationship Repair Program is valued at $2,100. It's 18 hours of tuition, and it may sound like a lot, but I want you to actually compare that with how much money you've spent because of heartache. How much money has broken relationships cost in your life? How much money, how much time, how much of your health, how much of your joy, how much of your love, how much of your well-being? If you actually had to put a dollar price on that, what would that price be? I wish I had this information, because if I had this information, I wouldn't be divorced now. My divorce cost me, just in legal fees, 85,000 euros, just in legal fees alone. Not to talk about, the ancillary costs, about, other costs on top of that. And it cost me a broken heart, it cost my ex-wife a broken heart, it cost my children trauma and pain. And I can't put a price on that. And if only I had known what I knew now, I would have gladly paid $2,000 in order to save the nearly $500,000 that it cost me, and my children, and the people that I love, and the collateral damage. So, the Relationship Repair Accelerator program itself costs $2,100, and it's very reasonably priced. If you take that, if you charge 18 hours worth of relationship counseling, how much that would cost? It will cost a lot more. But we have a live early bird special offer. That costs $2,100. The bonus that you learn with your child is valued at $495. Anybody in your household can actually attend this course. So if there's one person, if there are 10 people, you can all attend. It's a flat fee. Success Resources are making this available, all of their courses on the Relationship Squad, to entire families. Very gracious of them. The Quick Start coaching session is valued at $197. It's cheaper than the tuition because that's just a setup call, but we have to pay for the time and the technology. You have 6 bonus question and answer sessions for 6 months in Facebook. The value of that is $1,200. And the 2 special implementation calls are valued at $350 each, for a total price of $700. So, therefore, the Relationship Repair Accelerator programs cost $2,100. The crazy bonuses: you learn with your spouse and children, the Quick Start bonus, 2 implementation calls plus 6 bonus question and answer calls. The total value of this package is $4,694. But today, the global lockdown price in agreement with Success Resources, is coming to you for $297 only. Now, I'm sure you're asking, why on earth is it so cheaply priced? Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm doing this because I'm writing a book called From Struggling to Cuddling, which will be released later next year. And everything that I'm teaching in this course is the principles that I'm writing about in this book. And what I really, really want, I want to get some honest feedback on this From Struggling to Cuddling Relationship Repair Accelerator program. So I can create a really, really polished version. So, this version isn't really, really perfect, but what it does, what it lacks in actual presentation, it makes up for in the amount of content. It's 18 hours. Just imagine of you having 18 hours of free relationship advice, plus personalized question and answer time, plus, all of the support that you get from your peers in a safe group, in a private group for you. And, this is really quid pro quo. I want to get success stories from you because I want to hear your testimonials. And I always look after my early action takers. If you invest in this program, you won't pay the $4,600 that it's worth. You'll pay only $297. That's the price that Success Resources and I have agreed that we'll make this offering for. But there is a catch, and the catch is it won't be at this price forever because it's not going to be at this version 1.0. And I want to get feedback as soon as possible so that I can include success stories in my book and I can celebrate your successes with you. And also, I can't, receive everybody. I can't teach everybody at this time. I only can handle a limited amount of people. And that's why you must take action right now if you want to avail yourself of this opportunity. And so this is the offer sheet. Thank you. That's all I have for the presentation. And can we please switch to the Q&A so that I can spend the rest of the time answering any of your questions? Thank you. So we go into Q&A. So the Relationship Repair Accelerator. Okay. Ryan says, thank you for the webinar. I learned a lot on building good relationships. Do you issue an e-certificate on this? Yes, we can issue certificates. That's not a problem, Ryan. That's definitely something that we can do. How did you get into this career? What steps did you take? P.S. I currently study psychology at university. Thank you, Adam. What I did? Well, Payne was a great teacher. I have two children, which I love very, very much, and I had many, many, many relationship problems throughout my marriage, and I studied with some of the best teachers. For example, people like John Gray, who's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I studied with him in 2001. I studied with people like Anthony Robbins. I follow all of the gurus like Stan Tatkin, Esther Perel, Terry Real. These are some of the people who I look up to, people like Dr. Janina Fisher. I studied attachment theory. I studied neurobiology. And I did a lot of work also on childhood development because I was trying to understand myself, why things were like this in my life. How comes I was so successful and intelligent in many other areas in my life, but in the area of relationships with the woman that I loved, we were having problems that both of us couldn't solve. And also because I'm an empath, basically I feel other people's emotions and I can feel other people's. I'm very, very intuitive. It's just like that. And so it's an area which interests me for life, and I'll keep on doing this. So that's how I got into it. And I'm a voracious reader and a voracious consumer of all things based on the brain and on the heart. Yeah. So, what if a man insists on having sex and exchange of new pics right from the beginning? I mean, within a few days of getting to know each other in the name of love, trust, and honesty, and feels cheated? I wouldn't go into that. I think you should respect your boundaries, whatever you're doing. And if anything, you're being prompted to do anything that violates your boundaries, do not do it. Do not do it. Keep safe. Be safe and do not compromise yourself. Okay? Wounds from verbal abuse are much deeper than that from physical abuse. How to overcome the pain caused by repeated verbal abuse due to insecure thoughts in a relationship for more than 8 months. That is not something I cannot really give individual advice. That is something to which I would refer you to a specialist, somebody who's got like a psychological license for you to do. If you attend the course, though, there's a lot of really good self-help material which can help you get an idea of the type of wounding that you have and the type of relationship love map that you have, because different people respond to emotional wounding differently, but there are some patterns of response which are quite well known. And if you exhibit some of those patterns, then you can find a specialist in that area who can actually assist you in that. There is a lot that you can do on your own, but if you're traumatized, then it makes it very, very difficult for you to apply what you learn. And that's one of the reasons why I created this Relationship Repair Accelerator program, is because it's one thing about reading and absorbing or listening to somebody and taking advice, but implementing it is a completely different story. And when you try to implement new information, that new information has to be integrated with your past experiences. And if you have a traumatic or a painful or very, very damaging early experience or current experience, it makes it so much more difficult for you to integrate new knowledge, because your nervous system is out of balance and your nervous system may be operating outside your window of tolerance. And so you really could do with some external support and with some support. Now, I can help to the extent that I can help as a layperson, but I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not licensed to give medical information or anything like that, so I will not do that. What I can do is I can point you some resources that you can read and consult, and I would advise you to see a licensed medical specialist in your area who can help you with the kind of help that you need. Yeah. So, Michael, what do you think would be the reason that I still think about a woman who I only met a few times more than 2 years ago? Guess just need more important things in my life, but not even thought that much about my girlfriend, which I had for 2.5 years. Yes, Michael, that is a conundrum, isn't it? It's you're not the only person who has fallen into this condition. Sometimes we meet people who literally they imprint us in ways that people who we see every day do not imprint us in. And a lot of times we mistake these imprints for love. Now, it could be love. I'm not saying that it's not love, but more often than not, it could just be a kind of resonance in between your energy body, your nervous system, and their nervous system. Maybe there is just a resonance, how can I say, an attunement of frequencies between the two of you. You have this intuitive, non-verbal connection. But I would caution you in overlaying or believing that this intuitive, non-verbal connection is love. The fact that your reaction to this person was so powerful and you had such few physical interactions with them a few years ago meant that your mind is now filling in the blanks of what could have been between the two of you. And your mind and your imagination are very, very powerful. And your mind can create all sorts of scenarios of possibilities which may or may not be realistic. So I'm not saying that you don't have strong feelings. I'm not saying that this person didn't impact you, because obviously they do. And I can understand your confusion in saying that, how comes this person who I've only seen 2.5 years ago for a few times has a much bigger impact on me than someone else who I've spent a lot more time with? That can happen, that does happen. What this person actually means to you, you can only determine if you actually have a face-to-face interaction with them. And I know I'll say this once, but I will say this again. If you do have a face-to-face interaction with them, try to have honest communication with them. You might want to explain to them that they have an impact on you, and you may want to ask them what their intentions are in your life. And you might want to ask them whether you also have such an impact on them. And if you do, what does that mean in your lives? Because it's one thing to be affected by people, that's another thing in relationships. Sometimes we're in relationships with our partners and we are attracted to somebody else. It happens. Doesn't mean that you're bad, doesn't mean that the attraction may exist. It's what you do with that attraction. It's the meaning that you give to that attraction and the actions that you take based on that attraction. That's the determining factor. If you take an action which is not in line with the agreements in your relationship, then you are putting your relationship at risk. Not only are you putting your relationship at risk, but there's a potential of you actually hurting, even wounding your partner who may not be privy to this interaction. So I would say it does happen. Maybe this is a very significant person in your life, maybe it isn't. The only way that you can know is to decide, one, do you want to pursue some form of communication with this person? Is it ethical, given your current relationship status? Would it empower you? Are you willing to go down this road? Is the potential for it increasing the quality of your life? Is that potential higher than the potential of it decreasing the quality of your life? So you need to make some decisions on that. But I do understand and appreciate that this person did have a very big impact on you. And yes, I have seen cases whereby strangers have a bigger impact on us than the people that we are with for many years. It does happen. You're not the only person. Yeah. So are there any other questions? Let's see, trying to look at the chat. Okay. I see the chats. Yeah, thanks. How did you get this career? Okay. That's the questions with that. Answer Michael's question. And not in school, Sandrine. So yes. So I'm here if anybody has any questions. I'm very happy to serve you. And I'm very honored that you took this time out of your busy weekend to spend some time with us to learn how to make your relationships better. And my hope is that your time that you spent here this afternoon, you're going to take this, you're going to improve your life, you're going to make some decisions which are going to empower you. And if you're in pain, that this helps to ease your pain. And if you needed a little boost, a little bit of encouragement, I hope that this helps to go. And come join me. Come join me in the Relationship Accelerator, and let's actually delve deep into relationships and find out all the juicy things that we can do to make our lives better and light up the life of the people that we love and make the world a better place, especially in this chaotic environment where there's so much fear, there's so much uncertainty. We can do a lot by just reaching out and by going out on the best foot. And I know that relationships are a very, very vulnerable thing, and we have to protect ourselves, but we don't want to be so close that we keep all the good people out of our lives. There is a way that you can have a good balance between being open and allowing good things to come into your life and having a strong boundary and keeping the bad things out of your life. And as I said before, if you made a mistake, all is not lost. Nobody teaches these things in school. That's why I and many other relationship coaches and gurus have taken upon ourselves, we feel compelled, we will have a little bit of affinity for this information, to share this information. And, you know, I was blessed by a teacher who shared a lot of wisdom with me and helped me find some solace when I was going through challenges in my relationship and in my difficult time. And I feel compelled to pass on that gift. And if anybody needs any help, you know, you can go to my Facebook page. You can find me, or you can go to my website. You can consult, ask questions. This offer is open. It's still open. We're coming towards the end of the Relationship Squad by Success Resources virtual events. But right up to the end, the offer will be open for anybody that's interested. So please take advantage of it. This is a chance for us to meet face to face, for you to ask questions. If you're shy about asking questions, you know, you can post a question in Facebook. Once in Facebook, then I can see messages on Messenger also. I love sharing this information. I was born to do this. So for me, it's a pleasure, and it's a mission. And there's a lot of pain in this world, and I want to do everything in my power, now that I have the strength and the opportunity to do that, to alleviate what I can do, to play my own part. So please stay. Thank you very, very much for your support. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for all the kind words that you've been putting in the chat, and all the things that you've been sending, the messages that you've been sending. I'm very, very this. So let's see. Okay, let's go some questions. Tony, how about those who don't have their own family yet or are not even married? Can we let a family member use the first bonus? Absolutely, Shy. Absolutely. You can let a family member use the bonus. Okay? Yeah. Tony, how do we find you on Facebook? You can go to facebook.com/Tony Fonderson in one word, or just go into Facebook, click on the search for Tony Fonderson. You'll see me. I've got a Facebook page there. It's called Tony Fonderson. Okay? Steve. So the private message, so it means that it can be mended in restoration marriage, even though... Steve, the answer to your question is yes. It's very, very difficult to repair such a situation, but it's definitely possible. I've worked with people who've turned things around, and it's very possible. I know many people who have recovered from that situation. So it's difficult. I won't lie to you. It's challenging, but it is possible. Okay? Yeah. And have you come across the word limerence, having an obsession over another person, links to what you was just talking about, how a stranger can have more impact? Yes. And that is true. I've come across the term limerence, but not in the obsessive sense of the word, but it actually indicates a very, very strong affinity, a very, very strong interest. And, you know, people do have impact on us. We are energetic beings. We are bundles of energy, and our energy, we have energetic patterns around us. My brainwave has brainwaves. You know, if you put probes around my brain, those probes can receive my brainwaves. If you strap an electrocardiogram around my heart, it can actually capture, you know, my heartbeat. You know, so we are electromagnetic human beings, and the electromagnetic waves around us actually interact with the electromagnetic waves around others, and those cause what's called interference patterns, and those interference patterns actually affect us. So that's why you can be walking down the street and somebody's looking at you, and behind you, you don't see them with your eyes, but you sense their attention and their focus on you. And when you turn around, lo and behold, you sense that somebody was looking at you, and somebody was looking at you. So we do that. Yeah. So Steve asks again, yes, Steve, you can mend a relationship that is broken through. Yes, you can. Monica, I'm in a relationship with a man who's obsessed with certain type of sex, which I can do not. Well, Monica, respect your boundaries. Do not do what you feel is in violation of your boundaries. Okay? Keep your integrity and respect your boundaries and communicate that to your partner that this is a boundary which you do not wish to cross. And you may understand that they have a desire to do certain things, but that desire is not shared, and you can find other alternative ways for you to share your time, which is a win-win, empowering way with each other. Okay? But if you feel uncomfortable, then stick to your boundaries. That's my advice. Okay. How to respond to someone else that says you're chatting with long distance and they say that they care for you, but you don't believe it's possible to meet because of the corona crisis and didn't respond to my message suddenly. I know they say don't chase and silence is also an answer. So what do you do? Ask him or just wait until he replies again? Well, Elspeth, it sounds to me that you both have different expectations on the timing of your responses and at least let me speak about you because you're asking a question and I don't know about this other person. There's been some communication between you and you're asking that because the timing of the response isn't what you expect, you're wondering whether to reinitiate contact with them or whether, and you don't want it to seem as if you're chasing. Given the fact that you cannot physically see this person face to face and have a conversation with them, I think the only way that you can do is to actually, lay your cards on the table and say, I don't know if this means anything, the fact that you haven't responded, and you can explain in your world that in your world you would like or you expect or you would appreciate a certain response in a certain time, because if that response doesn't arrive in that time, you take it to mean X or Y. So what you can do is you can explain your perspective to this person. But the thing is, when you send somebody a message or a text, they are in control of when they respond to you. Communication is one of those things whereby it's a two-way street. If I speak to you and you don't want to answer or you don't want to acknowledge me, I cannot force you to do that. And no matter how offended I am or no matter how angry I may be, I cannot force you. You can only influence somebody. You cannot force or compel them to do what they don't want to do. And with communication, what you can do, I think the best thing that you can do is just to express your truth and make a request. Say that this is how I see things, and I would appreciate a response. And in my world, if the response comes sooner, it's better than if the response comes later. I think the best thing that you can do is communicate honestly. So that's what I would say to that. So Milena says, I had a boyfriend for years and walk away on a holiday suddenly to another woman. After seeing his patterns and educating myself, I think he was a narcissist. After his few marriages, I'm not sure if I'm right. Well, I cannot speak for him, Milena. Some people do have narcissistic patterns, but how can I put this delicately? The decision to end a relationship by somebody and the way in which that relationship ends does not necessarily mean that they have a narcissistic pattern. What I'm trying to say is that it's a possibility that this person behaved in the way that they behaved and is not a narcissist. And there's also an equal possibility that they are a narcissist. It's almost impossible to diagnose somebody if you're not, first of all, if you're not medically trained, if you're not trained to perform such a diagnosis, which I'm not, and if you're not that person, it's very, very difficult for you to see what's in somebody's heart and mind. So you can only judge people based on their actions and based on the impact of their actions on you. So that's all I can honestly say about that situation that you described. Yeah. Okay, Michael asks, if I had an impact on her, we would have stayed in contact, right? Well, maybe my actions pushed her away. Well, Michael, there's absolutely no way of you knowing. As I said, your imagination is now filling in the blanks, and I suspect that there are many parts of you, and one part of you is saying maybe things would have gone wrong, and another part of you is saying that I'm not sure, maybe things may not go well. It really, really depends on her. The only thing that you can do is ask. And in my understanding, the fact that she didn't stay in contact with you doesn't mean that you didn't have an impact on her. You may have had such a big impact on her that she got scared of what that could mean and she stays away from you. That happens too. Not everybody responds to positive inputs in a positive way. Sometimes love can be very scaring or even terrifying to certain people. So it is possible that you can be in a situation whereby you have a good intention and you express that love from a good intention, and your good intention doesn't get received in the way that you expressed it, simply because of their reaction to it. For some people, love is danger. People who grew up in homes where their caregivers were a threat to them, usually they have very, very difficult challenges with love, with receiving love. So for them, you may show them love, and that may actually trigger them in a very negative way, and they may actually withdraw. So that's a possibility. Just consider that as a possibility. Okay, Esther, I'm going to read your question. I'm not going to say it out loud. Please mark private. Esther, well, again, it's very difficult for you to know what's going on in people's minds. And when people meet on a date, they're usually on their best behavior. They usually want to project a certain image of themselves. Human beings, like if you study the Enneagram actually says that we have 3 faces. We have a certain face that we show under normal circumstances. We have another face that we show under intimacy, and we have another face that we show under stress. So just imagine that this was true, that each person has 3 different faces. So when 2 people meet together, there are 6 possible interactions. And a lot of problems I have is that, let's say one person is in their stress mode and the other person is in their intimate mode, and they think that they are both aligned, but when they're not, you see. Or usually a lot of times which happen in dating is lots of people interact, they first connect on the intimate mode, but their normal day-to-day modes or their normal day-to-day face aren't really, really compatible. So sometimes some people, they meet once and they never see you again, or they give you the impression that everything went well, and then it's radio silence. It may be that they trigger. You get triggered. Okay, from Emil, what advice do you have to free yourself from past relationship trauma so that can be free and open enough to love again? It takes work. It involves going inside yourself, finding out the different parts of you, because we all have different parts. Like this is going to a little bit of theory here, but we have a part of us which is like deals with our normal life. We have another part of us which holds all of our fear, and that's the part that freezes when we get paralyzed, when we're in shock. There's another part of us that carries our anger, and that's the part that sets boundaries, and it's very, very hypervigilant. We have a part which basically submits to the environment when we are in the presence of forces which overwhelm us, which are stronger than us, and we cannot fight back. So we conform. And then we have another part which wants to attach. We have another part that seeks love. So we have at least these 5 parts. And the question you're asking is, if you've been trapped by relationship trauma, what's happening is that these parts are basically hijacking you whenever you try to be in a relationship, because they fear that the past that you've lived is happening again in the present when it's not. But the challenge is that these parts, when they hijack you, they literally take over your whole physiology. So if your attached part, which is the part of you that seeks love from someone, if your attached part is in the driver's seat, basically all of your other parts have insomnia. They don't know about it until they get triggered and activated. And then they can get activated. Let's say your fight part gets activated and suddenly you get very, very angry for no good reason externally. Basically your fight part has taken hold of you and your fight part has got triggered by something in your environment which made it believe that it has to defend you or protect you or has to be aggressive. So that's why sometimes you see people, they behave in ways which are not consistent. So, for example, somebody can show you love, but if them showing you love triggers your freeze part, you would be paralyzed and you would withdraw from them. And then they will be left asking themselves, but I loved you, I interacted with you very, very well. How comes you don't respond to me? What's happened is that you've been hijacked by one of your parts, which is stuck in the past. So the solution to that is to reparent those parts, is to actually have some interventions, which I do. But basically it's to reparent those parts and to create secure attachment between your normal day-to-day self and those childhood parts which are stuck in different time frames. And once you reparent them, you can soothe them and reassure them so that they don't get triggered when these external factors, like somebody trying to love you or you trying to love somebody else, doesn't trigger them. So it's a bit of a convoluted answer, but there is a way to solve that. It involves reparenting your inner parts to actually dissolve the trauma. Yeah. So, Nora, should you find that your partner is a psychopath, sociopath, and will not cooperate on ongoing counseling, what to do? Nora, that's a very, very difficult situation. The only thing that you can do in that situation is heal yourself. And if you change, they will change. Yeah. My time is up, so I'm sorry. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. God bless.